Hi folks, my name is Ross Dyson, and those of you who don't know us, I see a few Facebook friends here that I've met along the way. I'm the one who bought the mines out here last year, and Tony and John and them were gracious enough to invite me here to tell you a little about the mines and how they came up and what we're doing with it, and happy to take that opportunity. So, a little about myself is, I'm retiring from federal law enforcement after 30 years of law enforcement and EMS work in. Thank you. But I spent that time working in Detroit, Washington D.C., New Orleans, and on the Mexican border. So after all that, people ask, "Why'd you come out here?" Well, this is as far away from those places I could get without falling into the ocean. So this just seemed like a nice place. I happened to be looking on the internet for some retirement property off-grid a few years back, and I saw this old ad that was run by the previous owners of the Verhoffs. There's Mary right over here. I guess a realtor before the current one, but it was still on the internet, because the internet's forever. So I threw an email off, and I got one back from Tom, her husband, and so it sounded kind of neat and sounded too good to be true. So I did a little homework, came out, realized that this is not only as good as I thought it was going to be. It was actually understated. It was better than I thought it was going to be. So I knew this is where I wanted to spend the rest of my time, and I met some folks in Tacoma that only hardened that decision. And there's a strange bunch out here, and I fit in wonderfully. No. So this just seemed to work for me. So after about a year, I finally concluded the sale and bought the place in December, and I've moved out there since, and now live full time on the site. So anyone want to come out and visit, great, bring a shovel. We got a lot of digging to do. People ask, what are you trying to do? Well, I'm going to restore the mines and preserve them historically and bring people through so they can see what it used to be like. Well, isn't that going to take an awful lot of time and money? Yeah, it's going to take all the time and money in the world. I got time. So, bit by bit, been enjoying my time out there. A lot of volunteers have been coming out to help. But I want to start by telling everybody about the Tacoma mines we have out there, because it is a fascinating historical monument to what man was capable of doing back then and what people did back in the day. You wouldn't see people doing that kind of work these days, but it is responsible for a lot of this area existing here today. And it took thousands of people over 82 years to run those mines, and unfortunately, other than people like George Ross, most of them are long gone, unlamented, unknown, and I'm trying to do what I can to research some of their histories and preserve as many of the memories as I can. So if any of you know anything about people who used to work out there, please bring that to my attention later. I'm looking to collect this information and do what I can to preserve their legacy, because they can't talk for themselves anymore. The last person who worked in those mines is gone, but the work remains, and it's a wonderful complex out there. It was first started back in 1875 when a couple of brothers named Brown came along and found some surface outcroppings that became the early Noonday and the Gunsight mine, which is adjacent to mine, but I don't own that one. And they started working out there, and eventually a fellow named Osborne came in with some deeper pockets and bought the Browns out. They found a little community down there called Brownsville, which was the original Tacoma, down where you see the old mill site today. And Osborne bought them all out, lock, stock, and barrel, like a couple $100, and they went away happy. And he started opening the mines up, Gunsight and Noonday, and they basically were running lead and silver at the time. Later expanded the iron and zinc there again, and back then the zinc was a non-entity, but they knew they had good quantities of lead and some silver coming up in the assay. So they started working those mines, and they ran them right up until about 1895, if I'm not mistaken, and finally they wound up shutting down. The economy just wasn't really buying those materials too well. But eventually Osborne sold out to another fellow named Lester, who came in and realized that he could do what Osborne could. He could turn a profit out there, because Osborne couldn't turn a profit. They had the ore, and it was good ore, but they had to bring it all by wagon to the smelters up in a place like Salt Lake City. So they weren't able to turn a profit with it. But in the interim, there was a fellow by the name of Borax Smith, who some of you may know, who owned all the borax mines in the area, and he brought the Tidewater and Tonopah Railroad down through the area. It came right through Tacoma. Well, now the mines have a way to move their ore and they could turn a profit. So Osborne seized on that, reopened the place, started bringing the ore to the railhead in Tacoma, again still by wagon, and started putting the mine back into production, and now it was turning a profit. Eventually they decided, hey, this is good, but what we need is we need a rail spur along here. So the Tidewater and Tacoma Railroad was picking the ore up, and the manager at the time of the mines, a fellow named Graves, went to Smith, who owned the railroad, said, hey, we'd like a spur out to our mines. And of course, Smith said, yeah, I'm thinking the same thing. We need a spur to your mines. Of course, Graves wanted to own that spur so they could move ore cheaply. Smith wanted to build the spur so he could charge the mines more. And they fought back and forth over it for a couple of years, and threats to build new smelters here, threats to build a parallel line, and all kinds of back and forth. Finally, Smith blinked and said, I give up, you can have it. And they brought a spur line from Tacoma out to the mines, up to both Gunsight and the Noonday mines, 12, 13 miles of track. And that was the Tacoma Railroad. They had one engine, an old Baldwin, 262 locomotive, which served that line and ran all the ore out. And finally, when the Tidewater Tacoma was shut down, that engine resided in Tacoma for a while until the World War II came along and it was needed for the scrap steel, and went to the smelter in 1942 along with all the rails. There are pictures of it available in the George Ross book, and I've got some out at the mine too. A beautiful old steam locomotive. But the mines warranted that kind of investment back then. 1906, the mines are up and running again. They're expanding under Osborne. They've got the money. They consolidated the Tacoma Consolidated Mines banner, which is now those two mines, but the Grant, the Columbia, the War Eagle, which was just coming on, Alexander, and a few other small ones out there. And they ran real nice up until 1928, showing a profit. 1917 through 1920, these mines out here were the largest lead producer in the state of California. A distinction that I think we should be proud of in this area. That's pretty good. These are some of the few mines in the Death Valley area that actually generated a consistent profit. Most of the mines out here were the gold mines, the silver mines, the copper mines, and they didn't generate much of a profit, even though they brought in a lot of good ore because just the transportation costs and operational costs. These mines ran a profit for decades. 1928, things slowed down. There wasn't much of a market for lead anymore. In the interim period, the Depression came along, capital dried up, the mines shut down again. And they stayed pretty much dormant, other than a caretaker, until war clouds were on the horizon in the 30s. 1940, they reopened again, the third period of the mines operation. Initially, it was the Shoshone Mines Company. They ran the mines for a couple of years, put the place back into production. The Noonday was pretty much dead. They shut down in 1928 and never reopened that one. The Grant mine up along the hill, same way. The Grant had been pretty extensive for a bit, going deep, and they shut that one down. And when the Shoshone came on back in 1940, they ran the mines for 2 years, meeting early war needs. Then they transferred over to the Finlay Company, who ran it for a couple of years, and then everybody's favorite, the Anaconda Company, came in here. At one time, they're the biggest mining concern in the world and the largest trust in America. And they came in and ran it from 1946 till they closed in 1947. Now, at that time, Anaconda was only running the Columbia, which they finally shut down in 1948, and the War Eagle, which they were able to keep going because they drove a new entrance in from the east side, I'm sure a lot of you know of. They were bringing originally they were bringing their ore out through the western Ada, where you see a big, nice ore bin up there today. But they were running into some bad ground down below, down to the 690 level. They had some caving ground that Anaconda, even their pockets, couldn't shore up. You can show you where they tried. They cribbed it and stalled it and did what they could to keep it open, but it just got to be too bad for them. So they drove that new drift in from the side. Their superintendent engineer, a fellow named Chick Joy, truly a genius of mining at the time, he drove that tunnel in from where it sits on the east side now over in the BLM land, half a mile back to that mountain, and hit the old workings within a foot vertically and horizontally where he wanted to come in. And that was not with computers. That's pen and paper work. That was skill. Yeah. And Chick Joy also just passed away a few years ago up in Utah. So I would have loved to have talked to him. I never got the opportunity. But they let the mines run because of that opening until 1957. They shut down again for the last time. You can still see the beautiful waste piles on that side and over on the west side. And they give you some idea what the workings are like underground. Having been down there, I can tell you it's even more than that. There's 20 miles of tunnels down into those mines. They go down. Noonday connects to Grant and War Eagle, and from the top of the mountain down to the bottom of War Eagle, you can go 1,100 feet. And Columbia Mine also runs down about 900 feet. Columbia is like a time capsule because there was a mine fire back there. Somebody started the shaft on fire and collapsed it, and access to the bottom is very difficult now. Not impossible, but difficult. And the scrappers haven't been down there, so it looks like the miners just left on a Thursday night, come back Friday morning, and never did. There's ore cars that still run on the tracks and lots of wonderful artifacts down there. And one of my goals is to open up a new passageway down there so I can get people on there to show them this stuff again. Right now you have to rappel on a 150-foot box shaft, plus a lot of other climbing. And then you got to climb back out, which is even worse. But we've been doing some work in the mine since I've been out here. Some of you may have heard or felt the rumbling. We were blasting in there. We fired off the first shots in that mine since 1957. And we've opened up a couple of new passages into the Columbia, and I've got a nice airflow coming up from an area I haven't been able to get into yet, which suggests that there is access to the 265 level below the fire. So with any luck, we'll be able to get people down to that lower level in the next couple of years, hopefully, and start showing it off. And that's what we're doing with the mines in general. So I want to preserve these mines and show them off to people so we can reflect back on what these people did back in the old days. And this is history. This should be seen. This should be experienced. The mines have been vandalized and scrapped and stripped out, and I want to put a stop to that. So that's why I've got gates on some of the entrances now, with more coming. I've got gates on the roads. I live on the site full time. I've got security cameras and motion sensors out there, and even a drone I can send up to chase things. So that's, I'm taking it seriously. But over the years, especially the last couple of decades, thanks to social media, a lot of people have been out there. We've had 2 main shaft fires that have been started. Several more people have tried to start that just haven't caught, fortunately. Most of the track and other metals have been taken out. Now they're stealing the timbers because that's beautiful 100-year-old wood down there. That's still stronger than anything they make today. And graffiti and other senseless vandalism down there. So we've begun a process of removing the graffiti, taking up all the litter out of there, and trying to shim up some loose spots and mark off other spots that are just too dangerous for that. But we're making this accessible again, and it's a good feeling. We've got a lot of people who've been willing to come out and help, which kind of validates what we're doing, I think. People want to come out, people want to get involved, people want to lend a hand. So we've had some work weekends out there, and anybody who wants to in the area, especially, if you want to come on out, hey, you want to bring a shovel. We got dirt to move. But seriously, I do welcome volunteers to come out and help. It's a lot of work to do, but it's a lot of fun. You get to be a part of history of the mine. And the idea is to get it back as close to the look as possible. The mines have various ages. Noonday ran earlier, and then War Eagle was later in Columbia. And you can see, especially in the older sections, we got a lot of old graffiti written by the miners with their carbide lamps. Lots of cute little sayings that were probably really funny back in the 19-teens. Roll me on a boat, soak me on a sponge. Their names, even one that says President Harding no good. So 1920, 1921, even then the man didn't have his fans. And this is stuff we're trying to preserve for history. I have discovered a couple of ore cars that the scrappers have missed that are back in hard to reach areas of the mines. Trying to get those viewable again and back on the track. One roll's ready, we're going to put it back on the track down at the bottom of Noonday. Some old dynamite boxes, wheelbarrows, drill steel, whatever artifacts are left. I'm trying to leave them on site, preserved, or bring them to a consolidated area museum where people can see them. So we pulled a couple things up out of the bottom of Columbia Mine. I found a pickaxe that had been down there since probably the 1930s. It had been leaning against the wall for so long that its handle was bowed just from gravity. And bringing that up the 150-foot ladder was not fun. But it's up here now where people can see it and hold it and get a feel for what that part of the history was like. And just recovered our first new ore car in Colorado, which we're bringing back. We're going to put it on the tracks in the Noonday. So hopefully within the next several months or so, people will be able to push it back up and down the tracks again and get a feel for what mining used to be like. Again, there's a lot of people did this work out here, and nobody can really appreciate what they had to do and what they had to go through living out here. Not only working in the mine, but living out here in these temperatures in the summer and working in the winter, and no air conditioning, and canned food, and just horrible conditions up there. But they did it, and they brought a lot of the lead and zinc to the forefront that carried America through 2 world wars and the Korean conflict. And most of that, even in the 1940s, the Columbia mine was the 2nd largest lead producer in California. So these were big contributors to the world stage. And I want to make sure that at the end of the day, these places are remembered, and the people who did this, get some accolades. And the more names I can learn, the better. Because I want to preserve all of this and do what we can to, remember this for posterity. So meanwhile, I'm an older retiree who's living out there enjoying the peace and quiet and the silence. And anybody wants to come out and take a look around, I welcome visitors. I'll pretty much never too busy to take somebody underground and show them around. And, happy for the help, happy for the visits, and hope you all will come out and take advantage of the opportunity. And if there's any questions I can ask, I'd love to touch on those.
What's it like down there?
Dark.
It was kind of unusual to begin with, kind of scary.
I mean, it depends on what you're used to, I guess. I mean,
yeah,
it can be, but I mean, ventilation is excellent in the mines, probably better than average, because there's so many openings at so many different levels that the air circulates through there. It's natural convection currents, hot air going in, cold air coming out, and it circulates. I mean, you feel breezes in there. It's nice. So we get the proper ventilation. I've been able to run a welder and a generator underground and carry the exhaust straight back out. You just got to pay attention to the air direction, but
Where are they? I don't know where they are in comparison to, say, here. Is it Tacoma? Is it behind us?
If you go to Tacoma and you follow the signs of China Ranch,
okay.
just don't go to China Ranch. Sorry, Brian. Where the China Ranch road turns off of Furnace Creek and the pavement ends on Furnace Creek. Just keep going straight onto Furnace Creek Road, on the dirt road for 5 miles.
Okay.
You'll come to a little concrete building on the left side of the road. It's the first thing you're going to see. That's the old vault that the paymaster used to use to pay their people out of in the Anaconda years. You go up past that, straight up the side of the mountain, you'll see my place up there by then. I'm a mile back up there. Trailers and solar panels and, 3-legged dog and all that other good stuff up there. And
all right, thank you. And all of them are there? All 3, 4 of them?
yeah, they're spread back up that canyon. The noonday's up behind me. I'm sitting on top of Columbia. Grant is off to the right, and War Eagle runs through the whole ridge, accessible from both sides. But those are gated, so.
Okay, thank you.
Are the mines connected underground, or are they separate?
Good, yeah, 3 of the mines are connected. War Eagle, Grant, and Noonday are connected. In the later years, Anaconda was trying to reach a big lead deposit, which they believe lie under the old Noonday workings. So they were tunneling through and just driving a long crosscut to get back into that section. And they passed through the old Grant workings, and they drove another raise up through Grant workings for ventilation and emergency escape. And as they passed under the far reaches of Noonday, they drove another raise up into Noonday again for ventilation and escape. Because by now you're 2 miles back under the mountain. And that's where the air comes down through. And we restored a ladder back in there. That was one of our projects more recently. So you can now walk back in about, 1.5 miles back in, climb up a brand new ladder, probably the best ladder these mines have ever seen. And then you're in the old section at the bottom of the Noonday, nice ore car back in there still in the tracks, some beautiful old woodwork in there, and then work through that area and come up the main shaft in the Noonday past, miners graffiti and bats and all sorts of other good stuff. And we got bats in there. That's one of the things we're also happy with. We were trying to create another bat habitat out there because the bats have been scared off by all the trespass and visitation over the decades. So the gates I put on are bat gate friendly, and the bats are starting to come back in there. I've got several of them hibernating in the Noonday and Columbia right now, and hopefully the numbers will grow. Except for the one that hit me in the face.
Do you have any plans to make it productive again?
No.
Are there any minerals still left out there?
Sure, I can show you some great galena deposits with a lead silver content, show you tons of iron ore down there, show you some copper traces, but not interested in putting the mine back into production. In fact, I've had a company that was looking to do that recently, and I had to tell them no.
you have a camera? You can go places where you personally or another person can go?
Not yet, no, it's crawling in there with the GoPro or my cell phone. So I'm on YouTube right now with some of those videos. If you haven't seen it, Tacoma Mines, youtube.com, please like and subscribe. I want to monetize it so I can be all high-tech like Sarah over here, Miss Wonder Hussey, who's been a phenomenal help.
I'm gonna interview Ross for my channel. I'm gonna send it, so.
I want to interview for mine then too.
Okay.
My 6 viewers will appreciate it.
You mentioned you've done some blasting there. Could you describe it? I mean, you have a full pneumatic rig underground or?
I do not. I don't do the blasting myself. I am not that skilled yet. But I have a very skilled blaster who comes in from San Bernardino. He's also on the rescue team. So he's invested in the mines personally, and he's come out a couple times and he brings his own rock drill, and he will drill the holes. What we've blasted so far is we've taken some obstructing rocks off the roads that have been a problem. We've had some hanging rocks that have been sitting up on top of some timbers precariously that have dropped down into place because of the fire. We've blown those. There was a large boulder that had come down and was blocking the grant shaft for a long time. We blew that one so we can get around that one now. The grant mine does have a nice shaft that goes straight down about 400 feet on an angle, connects to the lower grant workings, and then off on the side of their workings, there's two ladders that go down into the War Eagle 690 level. So, you know, with that blaster, we've now made that open and accessible, so you can get in and out easier that way. And we've blown up some old unexploded dynamite that's down there. There's a lot of that still floating around.
I was going to say, it's very, very, very dangerous old dynamite.
It's there, and we're disposing of it as we need to for safety. Some of it we can't really remove, but the stuff, we've blown some of it up.
Do you have information online about it?
I have a Facebook page, Ross Dykeman. My name, I'm the little Ross Dykeman on Facebook, and my YouTube channel, which again has 6 or 7 very satisfied subscribers. And you pay attention there. One of these, we'll get a proper website set up, but these are things I don't know much about yet, so you gotta bear with me.
Do you have enough hard hats to bring some people in so that they can go through some of the tours?
I do. I got a whole bunch of hard hats that I bought at a couple of thrift stores from.
Okay.
Those and headlamps are all you read. Now you get into it also shows the age of the mines too. You get into the War Eagle, and its working was done in the 40s and 50s. Very large tunnels because it was done by machinery. The machines needed clearance. So you'll walk in there sometimes and you'll have 6, 8, 12-foot ceilings or higher. And that's just in the non-mining crosscuts. You get into the areas where they stope the ore out, and they're massive. Now, on the other hand, you get back into the old Noonday and some of the old sections of Columbia that were done by hand. You can still see the pick marks in the walls where they chipped it out with the hand tools. And they didn't take out any more rock than was necessary. So, and again, I think they were a shorter little bunch of Oompa Loompas back then, because I have to bend over constantly in there. The rocks, some of them are sharp and hard. I can tell you from experience. So you got to wear a hard hat in those.
Do you have any documents, or have you gotten a hold of, is Anaconda have any documents, maps of the mines or anything like that? Have you reached out to them to try and get any of those kinds of resources?
Now, Anaconda's gone now. They're now Arco. They do have an archive that exists that somebody I know has access to and has provided me with several wonderful pieces of information. I do have maps that line up pretty good. Then some of the underground explorers have gone through and mapped it, and I have their maps. And they all match up pretty good, so we're using that. We're going to get to right now, possibly even blasting a new crosscut to get past the bad rock zone, so we can get people into the nice old section of the War Eagle that right now is too dangerous to get into. But there's a lot of beautiful old historic mine in that area. So according to the mine maps that I've seen, the company was trying to drill a connecting tunnel to bypass the bad area, and they stopped short on both ends. Looks like there's probably 30 or 50 feet separating the two drifts. So we want to, if I can get a survey in there and prove that my theory works and the maps are accurate, we may just drill and blast that open just so we can get people back into that area.
You have helpers that are helping you determine what's safe and what's not. That's not your background, of course.
That is not. I've got professionals that come out, and they've done air surveys, and they've done timber assessments, and show me what's dangerous and why, and a lot of stuff I wouldn't have caught otherwise. Even new people who work in the current mines like to come see these old mines, just like your car buffs. These guys who work in mines today, they like the old mines. They want to come in, they bring their knowledge and experience, and they show me things and teach me things. And they taught me how to shim timbers back up, so now I'm setting timbers by myself, and how to scale rock down, and more importantly, how not to scale rock down, because those things will kill you. But fortunately, we're not doing any blasting, or much blasting, not operating heavy equipment, so we don't have to worry about the rock falls you have in a commercial mine. But the air quality is almost to MSHA operating standards for a commercial mine, just on the natural ventilation, which is almost unheard of, because of all the air moving through the mine.
Cool.
There's only a few areas where you're outside the airflow where, you know, it gets kind of stale.
Why did they connect them all?
Just for, so you can have the ventilation moving through them. When War Eagle drove under, you know, that was Anaconda's work, the other two mines were shut down already, but they wanted the ventilation, and they wanted to access extra ways to get their people out in the event of an emergency. You should never have one way in and out of a mine. And fortunately, this mine has numerous ways in and out. I can go in and out of that mine a dozen different ways and come out of different spots of the mountain. So even if I walk in and the main portal drops behind me, I'm getting out.
I have a couple. What is the average temperature on a summer's day like in the War Eagle?
The average temperature year-round, 24/7, is about 70 degrees.
Yeah.
I go in a t-shirt.
Yeah.
You mentioned the main portal, is that made out of steel?
No,
Oh,
no, they've got, you know, wood framing, or just, you know. The only one that's got some concrete is the west portal on War Eagle by the old ore bin.
because my father took me in one of the ADITs. This had been about 1970, and there was a big steel door about 100 feet in or so with a rope hanging down. He told me it was if you pull it a certain way when he was working there, that they would raise the portal for you.
If it's the location I think it is, that'd be on the east side.
Yeah, I was thinking that too.
So it's about 100 feet back in. There was an air door that Anaconda had put in, set in concrete.
This would have been put in before then, because he worked there before Anaconda had it.
No, Anaconda drove this, wouldn't have been that one. But yeah, that's where I've set my gate now. So I've got, you know, beautiful, you know, barred gate back in there, and that's one that's to be the most security, because that's the one that anybody in their uncle can drive right up to, and they do. And they've made a few attempts already to cut their way in past the gate, but they're full of concrete, so good luck with that. Bring all the saw blades in the world.
In regards to tours, when do you like people to come? When is a good time?
Pretty much any time. Just, you know, contact me on, you know, internet, Tacoma Mines, all one word, at gmail.com, or off my Facebook page, or, you know.
So you don't really have a preference?
I don't. If people want to come out and I'm free and available, which is most of the time now, I'm still finishing up some government service, doing some computer work from home out there on the site. So I've got Starlink out there, and I've got better net connection than I had in New Orleans.
Yeah.
And, thank you, Elon Musk.
And one other question I wanted to ask, you kept talking lead and it kept ringing in my head, and I just wondered, in relation to the groundwater, has there been any studies done around that area?
Groundwater out there? I haven't found that yet. But, no, there is a well that I have to uncap and circuit, but no, I'm not aware of any of that.
The well's supposed to be good.
I believe it is. So it's a matter of getting the well uncapped and dropping the pump in there.
Is that the one in the Tacoma town site?
No, it's out my way. The last, the Verhaus put it in. Yeah,
It's above the old house site.
So I just gotta get it dug out and put it back to production.
Have you heard of the Orofino? Isn't that up there somewhere?
It is, yeah. That was one of the older, smaller mines that was put in under TCM, and it's got a couple of portals that sits off to the side or below the War Eagle western area. So I found the openings. I haven't been down into them yet. There's rope work involved, and it's a very unstable collar. So it's going to be advanced rope work, and I'm not there.
Are you gonna be shooting off any dynamite anytime soon?
If I do, I'll let you know.
Keep mentioning it.
Next time a guy comes out,
We do a tour.
say?
We do a tour to see the tour.
Well, usually everybody's outside on the surface when we blow that out. But usually, you know,
I could shoot it.
on the work weekends, he's been known to set off a charge up on the surface too, so everybody can see it and appreciate it. Are there any other questions? Yeah.
What remains of the surface works?
Nothing.
Nothing, okay.
The scrappers and the vandals have got it all.
I thought so.
There was some nice machinery at Columbia not too long ago.
What about foundations?
Yeah, the concrete foundations are still there. You can see where the machinery used to be. I've got some nice old pictures that somebody gave me recently that showed what the sites used to look like. It's incredible when you imagine what was actually out there. And the Ross book has some. So I recommend that book wholeheartedly. But yeah, there was so much out there for so many years, and it's all gone. Now you have is the foundations. So there were 2 camps for the miners out there, one for the single miners and one for the married miners. They had their own mill down there, which is down near Western Talc Road, which the Grosso Conservancy owns now. Thank God, them, not me, because it's a legacy of cyanide and mercury and all those other wonderful chemicals used for settling out the ores. So they've got signs posted warning folks about that. It's no joke. So, there was the DPW, the county yard out there where the bulldozer sits. That used to be the old airport for the mines at one time, and I wish it still was, but that was a runway.
My dad worked for Western Talc as well.
Yeah, right up Thelma Louise Road, yeah, that was an old runway for the airport. And of course, the power lines would make it a little challenging, that and the south winds.
Yeah.
If it was still an airport, if I could get it back in New County, I'd be happy to get under the airplane and stick it out there.
How much would you like to charge for a tour?
Yeah, I ask for donations and people come out. Generally, $50 a person for the basic tours. If anybody can get in and see the scenic areas of either Noonday or War Eagle. And the more advanced tours where there's some climbing involved and some little more rough terrain, the more interesting isolated areas, those kick up at $100 or more. Those are some
So we're
more
talking a couple hours?
as long as you want.
Okay.
Now, you come out, these tours are based on, I want to show this to people, so what they want to see, I show. And if they got questions, they want to take pictures, if they want to run this longer, I'm not on that schedule. So if it takes, 2-3 hours to see something, it takes 2-3 hours to see something. I want people to go away happy and satisfied and content. So it's not one of these, got one more coming in another hour, got to be out now. We don't do that way. If you want to stay longer, you stay longer. If you want to leave early because you're uncomfortable, we do that too. And we cater to the people who want to come in. I try to make it a unique individual experience. And of course, we're only using the headlamps, and there's no electric lights down there. In other words, it's just like it was when they were operating. The only mine that ever had any electrical power was War Eagle in the last stages. Even Columbia in the 40s was nothing but carbide lamp. Anybody else?
Thank you,
Mother
Calvin.
told me when Dad was working in the mine that she would carefully wrap each sandwich or whatever individually so that it could be handled without actually touching it. Yeah, you don't want to. I mean, the hands are icky and
Yeah, when you're working in the mine or a sewer, you don't want any Kentucky Fried Chicken or anything else that's finger looking good.
exactly.
And there actually is an old, one of the last toilets in the mine is still down there in War Eagle.
Oh my.
And yes, it has the remains of, but for the most part, they used to have honey bucket carts that ran in the mines. A little mine cart that had a toilet seat on it. It would roll around the mine and people would use it when they needed it. But they do it in the main section of War Eagle. They've got a permanent installation that's still in there. Not usable anymore, I hope, but evidence would suggest that some of the modern day explorers have been doing that, but we're going to curtail that.
Yeah.
When are you gonna buy the gun site?
I've got more than enough to handle with what I got now. But if anybody else wants to buy it, talk to Ken Henry. I'd love it. He's a neighbor over there. A gun site also shut down in 1928 when Nimrod did, and between the two of them, they were huge producers and a nice big part of Tacoma's history.
So, was there any gold pulled out of those mines?
Little bits, traces. It wasn't not really a commercial quantity. Like one of the surveys I saw when they were pulling ore out by the ton from Noonday, it was running about 15% lead, 6 to 8 ounces of silver, and you know, like a $1.50's worth of gold. That was back in the 20s.
So that's what I generally tell people when they ask me that, and I just want to make sure it wasn't like.
There's some gold in there, just not a whole lot compared to other areas in the Death Valley area. And of course, a lot of it too, the miners would high grade out. The thought back then was, you know, silver and lead belong to the company, gold belongs to the miner who finds it. And what they were making back then, you can't blame them. And a lot of iron down there, and of course zinc, you know, a lot of the zinc, you know, for World War II especially, it came out of those mines.
Which one is your favorite?
Oh, that's a tough one. I mean, I love them all, I really do. You know, Noonday is the oldest and the most historic. War Eagle is definitely the biggest. Columbia is probably the most interesting because it's the forbidden area down there with the fire, and it's massively complex down there. And I haven't seen most of it yet. And the Grant is one of those that everybody forgets about. It's up there. It's a hard road to get up to. In fact, when I first came out here, I stupidly drove my Sprinter van up there because I thought, oh, it's a road on the map. I found out that a road on the map in the desert is not really a road sometimes.
We learned that too.
Yeah. So the van's made 2 trips up there. It's first and it's last. I'm not doing that one again.
What prompted your interest in the mines? Was it something that you always had an interest in, or just?
I've always enjoyed mining history. You know, I first came out of Michigan with, you know, the best copper in the country for a while, and I lived in Appalachia for a while and had some familiarity with the coal fields out there. And I've done a lot of study over the years, just the mining history, and you know, you're looking to appreciate the kind of folks that can do that kind of work. And when I was looking at the property, it was you mentioned the historic off-grid, you know, scenic sites. Oh, and some parcels may have mine tunnels, just kind of in passing. It's like, that was what got my interest, that one little throwaway sentence. Oh, and some parcels have mine tunnels. So, you know, and I was responding to ads all over the place, but Tom was the one that actually wrote me back and told me more about it. And said, oh, that can't be that good. And of course, I didn't know anything about it. I'd never been out here before. And it was. So I'm proud to be able to, you know, finally obtain the place and preserve it so that the next generation can see it, because in its current state, it was going down fast with all the social media telling everybody how to get there and the problems. It's most of the damage has taken place in the last probably 20, 30 years. And that's just a darn shame. Hopefully we turn the corner, we're going to stop that.
How big's the property?
I have 400 acres out there, surrounded by the BLM land. And underground it runs 20 miles worth of tunnels. So come on out and bring a lunch. And again, I also invite people to come out if you just want to hike the area or something like that and enjoy the scenic views. You know, I've got gates on the roads, keep vehicles off, because my main worry right now is I've got some beautiful wood structures up there. Some of the head frames for Grant are still there. The War Eagle's ore bin, you can see from the road. My biggest worry is somebody's going to buy and, you know, burn those like so many others have been burned in this area. And that would be an irreplaceable shame. I can't replace any of that stuff. So that's why the gates up there is people can get the vehicle up near those. I'm not trying to keep people away, but if you want to see them, you know, walk. Have a nice hike. Go and take some pictures. Check in the obvious way, but you know, I don't turn people away. I believe that this should be seen and experienced by as many people as possible.
You don't come out with a shotgun?
Well, I do that, but I still don't turn people away. I did have some people come around right after I moved to my second trailer out there. But the first week it was on site, some people came around midnight. Yeah, they were met with a little less friendly me, but for the most part, you know, most people come out that they don't realize that I own the place. They don't know it's not BLM land anymore. So I'm all about welcoming people, educating people, explaining how it works, and most of them want to take tours by the end of the day anyway. So it's all good. You know, I did have some people out there today who were questioning whether or not I could block the BLM roads off. You know, so that still does come up, and it's like, well, it's a BLM road till it's to my property line, and it's my road.
Yeah.
And all doesn't BLM have an easement? No, they don't. And I've talked to BLM, and my background in federal law enforcement has put me in close contact with folks at the BLM, because I did work for the Department of the Interior a lot of that time. So Moses Rink, your BLM ranger out here, fantastic fella. He actually went to his law enforcement academy in Georgia with a couple guys who used to work for me in DC, because it's a small world after all. And I've talked to a lot of the folks at the BLM office, and they know, you know, who I am and what I'm out here for. I view myself as a steward of the land in toto. So not just my land, but all the land around. I pick up litter all over the place. I watch and contact people all over the place. I still hold my law enforcement commission for the next couple of months, so I can still take action if I need to, or back them up. But I also work with the local deputies out here, so if I see something, I call. I'm not looking to mix it up anymore. Those days are up. The kids do that. But I do get people come on the land sometimes, and they have guns, or there's a lot of them, and they just get off. I'll usually turn that over to the county, give them a call. And your deputies out here are just fantastic in the responsiveness and the thoroughness of their. I couldn't ask for better folks watching over my property in the county that I live in now. So, hats off to Inyo County and the BLM, and between them, I think we're well served out here.
I noticed that occasionally you have like volunteer days.
I do.
Do you have one of those coming up you might like to tell us about?
I do not yet. I will probably have another one in the spring when it starts warming up again and the days are a little longer. Right now it's almost full dark at 4:30. Thanks to daylight savings time. I enjoy watching the sunset over lunch, but So come spring, we'll do more of those volunteer activities. Pretty much anybody can come out. It doesn't matter what your skill level is. We'll find something you can do that's appropriate to what you want to put into it.
I was surprised to hear you say that it's 70 degrees in there. And
Nice.
growing up in the east, my understanding was, you go underground, it's 55 degrees year round. And I know this is the desert and we're near Death Valley, but up on the mountain there, still 70 degrees, not, what we get back east.
Some thermal activity that might contribute to it.
Yeah.
We've got some, you may have heard there's these hot springs in Tacoma.
Yeah.
And I don't have any under the mines that I know of, which is a darn shame because that would be just the coolest thing ever. But I do know that there's a couple of areas down at the lower levels where you can really feel some heat and some humidity. So I think I'm probably close to some thermal activity, especially one tunnel of the Columbia in particular. And that may be a factor, I don't know, but yeah, it's 70 degrees, which is, to me, it's better than 55 degrees. It's like, it's t-shirts and,
Right.
Will you build us a swimming pool?
If I find that, sure. I don't want to compete with the other wonderful springs here, even though an underground spring would be infinitely better. But you get a great thing at Tacoma already, and I'm sure not looking to compete.
No, we don't have a swimming pool.
We're looking for a cool
Well, not
swimming
one
pool
that's-
instead of 104 right
Oh, a
now.
cool swimming pool would be nice, yeah. If I can find a well, I've heard rumors of a second well up on that Anaconda might have put in back up near Columbia. And if I could ever find that and make it productive, then I'll probably have a pool there. Right now, I can't run a water pipe all the way up. So it's just whatever the future holds, so. Anybody else? Now, hey, thanks for coming out. I hope you all will come out and see it. And please, if you're not members of this wonderful museum, join this museum and its association. This does so much good for the community. Again, I'm a member, and I recommend it wholeheartedly to anybody. And they got some of the best staff here too, so.
Yeah, Tony.